you want me to do the clicking?
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, go. So Satya and I are presenting soap bubbles and their geometry. Hope you enjoy it.
Okay, so soap bubbles are bubbles that are made up of a solution of soap and water.
So you guys are probably asking, why not just water? Well, this goes back to surface tension, which is the molecules on the top of the water sticking together and creating a force. And if bubbles were just made out of water, the surface tension would actually be too strong and the bubbles would pop. So the soap actually decreases the pull of the surface tension. Also, if bubbles made out of water, they would just evaporate into the air quickly. So they wouldn't be able to last long.
Okay, so the bubbles, or the shape of bubbles, the bubbles try to take on what we call minimum construction. So they try to find the smallest amount of surface area they can. That's why we always see bubbles in spheres, because a sphere is the smallest amount of surface area that a bubble can have enclosing air. And if you see a bubble in a bubble blower that's yet to be blown, it'll also always be perfectly flat because that minimizes the surface area. And as bubbles get bigger and bigger, the amount of soap in the bubble, because it's set, it's slowly the concentration slowly decreases because it's getting bigger. And so as a bubble gets bigger and bigger, it'll eventually pop because the surface tension will get too strong. And also, the bigger the bubble, the lower the pressure of the air inside of it.
So there isn't that much math involved. It's more conceptual and like physical and chemical. But this is the equation we found to find the pressure of the bubble. Pretty much, R is the radius, T is the surface tension, and this is the change in the pressure. And this pretty much indicates that the smaller the bubble, the greater the pressure. So that's pretty much the takeaway message.
Okay, so merging, when bubbles merge, things happen. If it's two bubbles of the same size, they'll come together, and they won't create one bubble, but they'll still be two bubbles, but they'll have a perfectly flat barrier between them, because that takes on a shape of minimal surface area. If you have two bubbles of different sizes, they'll come together, and the smaller one, because it has greater pressure inside of it, will if this is a big bubble over here and this is a small bubble, it'll push into the big bubble because it has a greater pressure than the small bubble has a greater pressure than the big bubble. And if you have three bubbles meet, the point at where they all touch creates three 120-degree angles. And if you have four bubbles meeting, it'll have four places where it has 120-degree angles. And when those come together, it creates 109.5-degree angles.
That's really cool.
Okay, so pretty much Plateau, Joseph Plateau, he was a Belgian physicist who founded these theories that Satya just mentioned. So pretty much soap films are made of entirely smooth surfaces. So when you have like a bubble blower, the part inside is flat and it doesn't curve at all, meaning it has a mean curvature of 0.
Okay, so why do bubbles pop? They pop because the water in the bubble evaporates. And so the water is between two layers of soap. And if the bubble gets either too big and the soap layer breaks, then the bubble will pop because the water evaporates. Or if you touch the bubble with a dry or sharp surface, then you'll break the layer of soap and the water inside will evaporate.
But you guys probably know that if you have something wet and stick it through, it won't pop. Okay, that is because your finger, for example, the solution on your finger slides through and the bubble kind of forms around your finger, and also the solution on your finger fills in the hole that a dry object would have made. So it kind of just like forms around your finger and they kind of stick together, the two solutions. This is, okay, let's have this in the beginning. If two bubbles are the same size, the wall between them is flat.
This is, if three bubbles come together, you see this line here is, there's three 120-degree angles formed around that.
That's the one that we just showed you with the cube where they all meet at a point.
Yeah. And then this here, this is three different bubbles. This one and this one are making flat surfaces with the middle in the bubble, or the middle bubble. And then this here in the middle is the catenoid. And if you have two bubble blowers and you're making
1 minute.
stretching a bubble between them, a catenoid is the shape of lowest surface area, so it'll naturally conform to that shape.
Okay, some fun facts you guys might want to know. So right before a bubble pops, its soapy skin is only 1/1,000,000th of an inch thick. In 2005, someone blew bubbles so big, they could fit 788 milk jugs in it, and it weighed over 3 tons. Yeah, no, the water inside, like it would have.
If it was filled with water.
Yeah, and in 1996, a man in New Zealand made a bubble that was 105 feet long, and he made his own recipe using Matt's recipe: soap, glycerin, and water. And we have a short skit we're going to show that kind of reenacts or reinforces the.
We're bubbles.
Okay. Why are we sticking?
I don't know. Maybe because of the electronegative forces of surface tension between us.
Why is there a flat wall between us?
Because we're the same size.
Oh.
Scene 2.
Why are we sticking?
I don't know. Maybe because of the electronegative forces of surface tension between us.
And why is the wall between us curved?
Because you're smaller than me, so your internal pressure is bigger than mine.
Therefore, the wall is pushing toward you?
Yep.
Very good. Question.
Cindy?
Can the wall between the two bubbles only be flat if they're the same size? Like
Yeah.
if they're
Yeah.
Which means
exactly
they
the
have the
same
same
size.
Yeah, it's flat because they're the same pressure.
Eleanor?
What's your reason for why they were sticking together?
The surface tension, the molecules just like come together.
Yeah, when the
Electro-
bubbles come together, they stay together because of the
forces.
electronegative forces.
Okay, that's now just want to make sure everybody's clear about this.